Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to Positive News Now. I'm your host, Gail Nowak. Today, we're speaking with Theresa O'Brien, inspirational speaker and author of the soon-to-be published book, Remodeling Your Interior. As an award-winning interior designer, Theresa has helped her clients define, plan, and execute successful home redesign and remodeling projects. These project journeys take clients from states of dissatisfaction, confusion, and stress to comfort, happiness using the step-by-step design-build process. After experiencing seemingly insurmountable life challenges several years ago, Theresa herself had the brilliant idea to use this same process to successfully remodel her own life, overcome her personal challenges, and design-build a healthier, more satisfying, and authentic life. Now, Theresa joyfully shares how the process can work for you too. Welcome, Theresa.
Well, thank you. That was a lovely introduction. Thanks. I'm thrilled to be here, Gail.
And I'm thrilled to talk to you about this. Having a little bit of background and experience in the architectural engineering and construction field, I actually know what you're talking about when you're talking about the design build process.
Really resonated with you. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I love, having been in the field, I love that. It can be kind of technical, right? And so I love that you've taken this technical concept and applied it to just life in general. So I'm really excited to talk to you more about that. And why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about you, your work, and what inspired you to apply to kind of take this out of the realm of your industry and bring it into your life?
Well, first, I'd like to just touch on the fact that you had mentioned that the architectural design field can be really something that's very structured and very static. And that is the very reason why I decided to use that to help people move forward, and myself in particular, in their personal lives. It's the very thing that makes design build and the architectural world, the wheels of that world work so beautifully, and everything's much easier because there are specific steps to follow. So what had happened to me many years ago, not unlike, pardon me, many of your viewers or many of your listeners, that I encountered a lot of very, very difficult challenges in my life. I was approaching the end of my 26-year marriage. I went through a very difficult divorce. I went through, because of my husband's, the loss of his business, we went through bankruptcy and foreclosure. I went through a very, very stressful time in my life. And like a lot of us, when we're whirling within that world, overwhelm takes over, and we don't know what to do. We can't see a way out. Things seem very stagnant. And as we all know, nothing healthy grows in a stagnant place. If you think of a very stagnant pond, all sorts of yucky stuff grows there. Nothing healthy and nothing that's probably going to bring you out and into a more positive light. So during that time, the only thing that was really going wonderfully for me was my career. I was having a lot of success and won many awards in the design build contracting field. I was having a lot of success using the design build process. Basically what it was, Gail, was I was taking a lot of things that were broken and making them beautiful. So during that time, I started to realize, after years of stumbling and not knowing what to do or where to go or how to move forward and feeling very lost, I decided, why can't I tap into the design build process that I have used so successfully in my career to help me in my personal life. Because really, I think that when we're wrapped up in the chaos and confusion and mayhem that happens to us sometimes in our lives, we really just don't know what the next step is. And that's what the design build process does. It gives you structure. It adds the next step and a grid that tends to tap down and organize the chaos. So if you think, for example, any one of us have gone through probably some type of remodel in our lives, whether it's, a major kitchen or bath remodel, or whether it's adding an addition, or whether it's something as simple as rearranging a room in your home so that it serves you better. We all understand what that looks like. When I was working with clients who were considering remodeling their home, the first thing that we talked about was establishing the existing conditions. Where were we starting from? If you don't know where you're starting from, you're never going to end up where you want to be, because you won't understand exactly what it is that you have to work on. So establishing existing conditions in the remodeling industry was a very good place to start, but also establishing your existing conditions in your personal life is a wonderful place to start. You have to really sit down and you have to be very, very honest with yourself about where you're at, what isn't working, and that can be very, very difficult for some folks, but it is a necessary first step. When you think about major life changes, there is a cost associated with that. So in establishing where you are and realizing just how bad things might be, you're going to better able to absorb the cost of the changes that you need to make. If your life isn't that bad and things are going great, this probably isn't for you. But if you're struggling with some major changes, then looking at yourself and establishing where you are is very, very important. After we do that, another step in the design build process, architecturally speaking, is the beginning of establishing some conceptual designs. And really all that means is what might work? What are some of the changes that we might need to incorporate? Developing some initial conceptual designs, some changes, and you know that when you're going through all of this mayhem, you really do start to think about, well, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could do this. So really developing some conceptual designs for your own personal life is very, very important. Once we've established existing conditions, we can then think about, okay, this is where I'm at, and then think about some conceptual designs. This might take me where I want to go. The important thing to think about in thinking about developing some preliminary or conceptual designs for your life is that there are no details. Just like in the design build world, conceptual designs are not detailed plans. They're basically just a place to start. And the same thing needs to happen when you look at the chaos in your life. You have to think about where might be a good place to start. After absorbing that, one of the other steps, the next probable step in the design build architectural world, is incorporating expert help. I am a designer. I've been trained as a designer. I'm a certified kitchen and bath designer, but I am not a plumber. I am not an electrician. I am not an engineer. So what I need to do in working through my professional life was always defer to the experts in places where I knew I did not have expertise or training. And the same type of thing has to be considered when you establish your existing conditions in your personal life, you think about some changes, think about some conceptual designs. The next step is think about you've gotten yourself here in your life and you're stagnant and you don't know how to move forward. So, this is the perfect place to incorporate experts that will help you think about and understand from their perspective how those initial solutions to your problems might come to fruition. In my case, my experts were number one, a good therapist. I had never considered going into therapy. I didn't need it. I've been very lucky in my life. But my sister was the one who mentioned to me when I was going through the turmoil that she thought I might benefit from speaking to an expert, from speaking to somebody who what their job is to help them move forward. So in my case, my experts were number one, a good therapist. I needed a good medical team, and I needed a good financial advisor. I think, as I shared with you, as I do in the book, that my challenges were first figuring out the mayhem in my head. So a good therapist needed to tend or help me tend to that. Because of the mayhem in my head, my physical wellness was not good. I was physically not well. So I needed to get a good medical team on board to support moving myself forward in a very pragmatic way, and in using the help of the medical team to get myself on track to becoming more physically more healthy. And then, of course, going through the horrific mayhem of bankruptcy and foreclosure, it's obvious, and I talk about this more in the book, but it's quite obvious that my financial health was not where it should be. And so I needed to have and employ a good financial advisor to help get me on track. And those were my big nuts. People out there might have different nuts that they need to chew on. And that's what this process does. It helps you determine what your priorities are and then incorporate the experts to help you move forward. It's very clear to me, and it was at the time, after I started to get help with my emotional and spiritual well-being with my therapist. Obviously, if I wasn't healthy emotionally, nothing else was going to fall into place. I wasn't going to be able to employ good physical health, and I wasn't going to be able to employ good financial health. I couldn't keep doing what I was doing over and over and over again, right?
Mm.
That's the definition of crazy, is to keep doing something. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always be where you are. And that's what was happening to me. I wasn't able to move forward. So again, going back, establishing where I was at. Second, developing some initial conceptual solutions for how I might get myself out of where I was. And then employing expert help, getting expert help, and not being afraid to do so. There are so many steps in the design build process that really align so beautifully with personal growth that it was quite shocking to me. I really wasn't sure if this was going to work. The next step is the formal design. You take everything that you learn by establishing your existing conditions, by developing your conceptual design, by getting expert help to bring you to create a more defined, formal plan for your life. And really what that is creating specific steps that are specific to your own challenges to help you move forward. one of the most difficult steps in the design build process, and I found one of the most difficult steps in my real life remodeling process, was the demolition process. It was devastating to me to learn what I had to remove from my life in order to be able to move forward. Gail, I use an example that, I worked with a client in the design build field, and they had a beautiful fireplace in the middle of their home. And unfortunately, the fireplace was in the way of a beautiful view out their windows. And so, even though it was very difficult for my clients to let go of that fireplace and to understand, in order for us to get them a more beautiful remodel and to incorporate a more beautiful view into their home, that fireplace had to go. And it was painful. I mean, they had a lot of really wonderful memories around that fireplace. But when we took that fireplace down, the light that flooded her space was so uplifting that that's when she realized that fireplace really did need to come down in order for them to get to a place where they could incorporate a better design for their home. And it's like that in our personal lives. We have to remove things that are very, very difficult to remove. And oftentimes it's not something that you want to remove. Removing my husband from my life, understanding that was a toxic relationship and that it was keeping me from moving forward, was incredibly difficult. As you can imagine, as anybody who's been through divorce understands. I had to say goodbye to a couple of really good friends because they weren't on board with my growth.
Yeah.
You can't take people along your journey of growth if they don't want to go. And if they're weighing you down and adding to the chaos, then the demolition of some of those relationships has to happen in order for you to move forward. I just wanted to stop and just introduce, the concept that the reason why most of us struggle with moving forward in our lives is because fear.
Absolutely.
The fear of the unknown, the fear that people aren't going to like us anymore, the fear of letting go of toxicities that, honestly, that those toxicities have become so difficult to let go of because they're so familiar to us. They're familiar, and even though they're painful, we'd rather sit in that familiarity than move forward because we're afraid. We're so afraid of the unknown. So fear is something that, look, it's going to be in all of our lives. It's never going to leave. Fear is always going to be riding shotgun. But if you want to grow and you want to learn and you want to be a more true version of who you are, if you want to live your honest self, then you address the fear. You say, okay, fear, you're there. You can ride in the passenger seat, but you're not going to drive the car. I drive the car.
The fear piece, I think, can become so overwhelming at times. And you talked about the toxicity and how, even in a toxic situation, just because it's familiar, it's like the devil right? Versus the devil you don't know. But then there's also another layer of kind of what you were touching on before, of some people just are not on the same path. Maybe it's not that it's a toxic relationship or a toxic connection, but people are on their own path and they're growing at their own rate. And sometimes that can be really scary and painful too, to just let that connection go when you can't necessarily pinpoint, a reason, quote unquote, legitimate reason, right?
I agree with you. And I think that in all honesty, that can be one of the most difficult steps to take. I think the one thing that I have found that combats fear better than anything, and even if it's the fear of moving forward without really, like you said, with some of those relationships that this isn't healthy, but it's not like it's so toxic that you can't live with it. But I think that what happens when in any demolition situation, in any removal of things that are not going to serve the plan that's in place, I think that's one of the things that you need to think about. That's what blows it up. That's what blows up fear. Action blows up fear. And if you have a plan in place, what's going to happen is just very naturally, if you follow the steps in the plan, very naturally, the things that don't serve the plan, whether they're toxic or just unwanted, Gail, that they're going to just naturally fall by the wayside.
I know that you work in particular, women in transition and women who are kind of experiencing some of these life challenges that we've been talking about. And besides the fear piece of it, which I think we can all relate to, what are some of the other common myths and misconceptions that people have about change in life?
Oh, I think, there are a couple that come to mind. And, I'm no spring chicken, Gail, and I've lived a life, and whether you have lived a good number of years or whether you haven't, I think that what I have found consistently in speaking with is specifically women in transition is that they feel as though it's too late to change. And I've spoken to women in their 20s and 30s that are married, that have children, that say, oh, forget it. It's too late for me to change. I've already established what my life is going to look like. I made my bed and now I have to lie in it. And that is so disheartening to me because really age is just a number, and none of us is promised tomorrow. Whether you're 30 years old or whether you're 60 years old, none of us is guaranteed that we're going to be here tomorrow. So why not look at yourself and your life and know that you can get yourself to a better place? And I think the most positive feedback I've gotten so far in speaking to women in transition, Gail, is that they don't have the steps to follow. They don't move forward because they don't know how. And if you look at the entirety of what I changed in my life, that would be overwhelming, I think, to anyone. But when I broke it down into little bite-sized pieces and bite-sized steps, the first step was, again, establishing existing conditions. So, okay, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here, but what I am going to do is I'm just going to sit and think about where I'm at. So do you understand that if you break it down into those little pieces, it becomes less overwhuming. The level of fear becomes less. The level of your investment becomes less when you take things a bite size at a time.
How do you eat an elephant?
Elephant, yep. My mom
bite, bite, bite.
all the time.
Yeah,
absolutely. And looking at life change is like having an elephant sitting on your chest. So there's one misconception. The other misconception, which I think is huge, and I hear over and over again, is that people are waiting for somebody to rescue them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, Gail, but nobody has knocked on my door. And when I opened, it said to me, and here's your platter of all the changes and the things you need to do to make your life better. I'm so glad that we just happened upon your door. It's not going to happen. Nobody is going to knock on your door. They don't even know you're in there. So when I hear people say, I got married because I was hoping that, this would happen, or I thought my parents would bail me out, or I thought my friends would know that I was suffering and would reach in and get me to a better place. Nope. Because everyone has got their own platter of stuff that they're trying to deal with. And your friends love you, and your family loves you, and your husband or your wife loves you. But you know what? It's not their job to rescue you.
Right. I think that sort of answers the next question that I was going to ask you, but you can certainly share some more. Is when you're going through these life challenges, what is the most important question you should ask yourself when it comes to getting to the other side of it?
Oh, I love this question. I love this question because we did touch on it a little bit earlier, but you know what? You really have to have some self-reckoning here. You have to realize that this or any type of significant change is going to come with a cost. And for instance, in my own life, I had to look at where I was at, develop where I wanted to go, and then look at what the cost was going to be. When I was working in the design field, and I'm still working in the design field, but when I work with clients, I don't remodel their kitchens for free. And I have to develop a design for them with their help and as part of a team. It has to address enough pain points in their lives to really make the cost worth it, right? I cannot say it's going to cost you $150,000 for this new kitchen and then have it not improve the quality of their lives. If it doesn't improve the quality of their lives, if it doesn't make their life better on a daily basis, then they're not going to give me $150,000 to make those changes. It's not going to be worth it for them. And I've had many people where, try as we may, the cost really did outweigh what it was going to give back to them, and they didn't move forward. And the same is true for your life. I had to look at my life and realize and own what the cost was going to be, and realize were the changes and was I going to be a better version of myself after those changes were made, and were the costs going to be warranted? In my case, I had to let go of a long marriage, let go of my ex-husband, because that wasn't going to lend itself as a positive application to my future plan, right? I had to let go of friends. I had to let go of an existing support system, because when people started to see what I wanted to do, I had to develop a new support system. I had to create the kind of support within myself and surround myself with really healthy people. And that was a lot of work. But really, it's looking at the cost of the changes and trying to determine, is it going to warrant that cost? Are the changes going to be positive? Are you going to be in a better place? Is your life going to be better? Most of the time, it is going to, warrant the type of costs that are involved. But if you really sit down and think about, am I willing to give this up in order to accomplish this? You have to really ask yourself that question.
Right. And I would imagine allow yourself the time and the space to sit with it too, right?
It has to, and that's part of the establishing the existing conditions phase, is
Right.
really being honest with yourself. And you're right, Gail, none of this happens overnight.
Right.
We didn't
It's a
get here
process.
overnight.
Right.
I didn't get to that mess overnight.
Yeah,
right?
and I think that, we just have this part of our, wonderful modern day society. The side effect is that instant gratification, and so I think that part of the chaos that we um, accumulate in situations like this is this artificial need for urgency, and this pressure on ourselves to figure it out right away. And
Oh, I totally agree. And, and this is where social media has not, done itself proud.
mm,
There's a lot of positive things about, social media and how it makes our lives better, right? But we really have to caution, and I'm not the first person to say this by any means, but, we look at Facebook and we look at Instagram and everybody's life looks perfect. You know what? My life, I did such a good job, Gail,
mm,
of
mhm.
making my life look so perfect that I would have people coming up to me and saying to me, I can't imagine, how wonderful your life must be. You must not have any problems. You've got a great husband, you've got a great career, your husband has a great business. And you know what? I did that to myself. I didn't want anyone to know what a mess my life was. I didn't want anybody to know. So I created this picture perfect life that everyone around me bought into. And then you know what? Then I had to find myself out of that. I had to let people know, guess what? This isn't real.
Yeah,
And that was really hard.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So, what positive shifts are you experiencing as a result of using your process and sharing your process and your message with other people?
Oh my heavens. This is, when I realized how effective the process was for me, Gail, and how relevant it was to personal change, specifically how it changed my life. Um, I, it kind of it makes me a little emotional because for the last few years, um, am not afraid to be me.
Mm,
The good, the bad, and the ugly, and let people see it. And the fear does not run my life anymore. I know it's there. I continue to use the the design build process in my life. I look at, because as you know, just because you've overcome some problems doesn't mean that the next time you open the door, there aren't going to be more just marching in,
Oh, yeah, they
waiting
always
to
come
say
back.
hello,
Different
right?
packages, different scenarios, but it always comes back
It
in
does.
some form.
And it's crazy. But yet, when you realize, wait a minute, okay, I'm facing this new life challenge. Let's go back to the process, the
Mm,
power of process. Looking at a challenge, realizing, okay, let's figure out what this is. Where are we at? Let's think about some possible ways we can change. Let's realize what needs to be taken out. Let's develop a new plan. Let's go back to my experts. And then, okay, I'm in a better spot. So I continue to use it today. And I think one of the biggest joys that I have is in realizing, wait a minute, if this worked for me, this might this might work for other people. This people, especially women in transition, that really identify with and can relate to a remodeling process, whether big or small. It's not a big leap to realize, well, wait a minute, why can't I remodel my life? I'm in charge of this. I'll follow the steps. And I've really had some wonderful examples of people coming back to me and telling me the changes that they've made in their life and how they're using the design build process to create some real positive change. It's been really overwhelming.
that's beautiful, and I love this metaphor because, like you said, I think it's something that everybody can relate to. It's practical, and it's also really beautiful, to be able, and empowering to be able to sit down and realize, okay, the journey might be a little bit bumpy, but I am in the driver's seat. And now you're giving people some tools on how to do that. And I just think it's a wonderful thing that you're sharing with people.
Absolutely. And you know what, Gail, there's a chapter in the book called where we talk about your toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that we're all born with a toolbox. And some of us have a lot of tools. Some of us don't have enough tools. Some of us have tools that we don't know how to use, or some of us have tools that we're using improperly. For instance, it doesn't take a sledgehammer to kill a mosquito, right? No, you may kill the mosquito, but you're also going to take out whatever the mosquito was sitting on, And we talk about the analogy in using the right tools in the contracting field, and then learning how to use the right tools in creating personal change for yourself. And people get overwhelmed when they think about this, but you know what? We have all done a lot of things right. So I ask people, look back in your life and look at what you have succeeded at, big or small. And what did that look like? What tool did you use? I found that, thank heavens, I was born with a good sense of humor. And that was one of the most important tools that I used as I moved forward. Because like anybody knows, that a good sense of humor really can be very healthy in helping you through some very difficult times. So yeah, we definitely use the toolbox analogy. Just yet another, option, analogy that people I think can relate to. It's powerful, it's relatable, and it works.
Great. So before we wrap up, is there anything that people should know that we haven't yet covered?
Well, I would just say that I want to tell people, and many people have been asking when the book is going to be out, and I'm guessing at this point, late summer, early fall. And the title of the book is, as you said, Remodeling Your Interior, a step-by-step journey that will change your life. And I really hope people take it to heart, and I hope that they use the book as a tool to help them move forward in their lives.
Excellent. So how can our listeners find out more about you, where the book's going to be available, and your upcoming events?
Yes. Well, anybody is welcome to come to my website, Theresa O'Brien, and you can email me, and I am a speaker. I am hired to come out and speak and talk to groups that really could use a good kick in the pants and some really effective tools to help move them forward. And, I definitely believe that if people contact me, that we can work something out so that I can help you, I can help groups of people that you are part of, and we can all move forward to get ourselves to a better place.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your process with us and your tips, and I wish you the best of luck.
Oh, thank you so much, Gail, and thank you for the invitation. And I'm sending out an invitation to everyone to remodel their interiors.
Until next time, remember, be your best story and share your positive news now.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.